Hi, I'm Natalie Armstrong-Motin. Welcome to Marketing Monday. I want to start today with something that might sound a little bit provocative, so brace yourself. Here it is. Your credentials are not your marketing. They never were. They're your ticket to the room. They prove that you belong there. But the moment a prospective client is sitting in front of your website or scrolling your LinkedIn profile, or holding your business card, after you speak on a panel, your credentials are not the thing that makes that potential client pick up the phone. What makes them pick up the phone is something that not a lot of people are talking about in this industry. So we're going to fix that today. All right. That is, to quote the great American philosopher Dolly Parton, a hot cup of ambition. There is no marketing strategy on earth that survives an undercaffeinated Monday. So we're properly fueled up, we're ready to go. So this is what I see over and over again. When I look at Mediator and Arbitrator websites, and I have looked at thousands of them at this point, the About page reads more like a CV. 25 years of experience, trained at this institution, member of these panels, author of these articles, past chair of this committee. All true, all impressive, and all completely interchangeable with the next 40 neutrals in the same niche. If I covered up the headshot and the name at the top of most of those pages, I genuinely could not tell you which mediator I was reading about. And that means neither can a prospective client of yours. So here's the thing I think that's easy to miss. That's not because mediators are bad writers, but it's because the profession is trained us to lead with credentials. We're lawyers, many of us. We're neutrals. We're cautious about anything that smells like self-promotion. And that caution, which is healthy in the room, it becomes a real problem on the page. So what I want us to think about today, credentials answer the question, what do you know? But your niche story answers the question, why do you care? And caring, it turns out, is one of the things that clients value most when they're choosing who to trust with a difficult situation. They're not in the market for a transcript of your qualifications. They're in the middle of one of the worst weeks of their professional life, or they're litigating a case that has sometimes very dramatic repercussions if it goes one way or another. And they're trying to figure out whether or not you are the right human to walk them through it. And a niche story is a piece of writing on your website or in your speaker bio or in your introduction at a conference that tells the truth about how you ended up doing what you do and why the work that you do matters to you. It's not your origin story in some sort of grand sense. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be true and specific. So let me give you a couple of quick examples of what this can look like so that it stops feeling like an abstract. Example one, you are a construction mediator. Most of your competitors lead with arbitration training, AAA panel membership, and your niche story might be, I spent 15 years as a project manager before I ever sat in the mediator's chair. I watched contracts fall apart in ways that didn't need to because of misaligned expectations, terrible communication, and disputes that should have been caught at the schedule of values stage. I do this work now because I've been on the other side of the table and I know exactly how preventable most of these disputes were. Now, if that were your story of why, you read that and you ask yourself, which version makes you more likely to pick up the phone, the CV or that little vignette? Example two, you're a family mediator who focuses on family business transactions. Your niche story might be, I grew up in a family business. I watched my parents try to figure out succession with their siblings with no help, and it nearly broke the family. I went on to become an attorney, then a mediator, because I wanted to be the person who could sit in that room when families needed someone who actually understood what was at stake, not just the legal questions, but the relational ones. You notice what that does? It doesn't oversell. It doesn't promise outcomes. It just tells the truth about why this practitioner cares. And that truth is much more persuasive than another paragraph of credentials every single time. Example three, let's say that you're an employment mediator. You might want to write something like, I spent a decade in HR before I trained as a mediator. I sat across the table from employees who felt unheard, and I watched managers handle situations in ways that turned manageable conflict into expensive lawsuits. I know what these disputes look like from the inside of an organization, which is why I do this work the way I do it. So three very different practitioners, three completely different stories. Not one of them sounds like the next 40 mediators in their niche. Now, I know that you might be thinking, because I've been doing this work for 30 years and I know our profession. Natalie, this feels uncomfortably personal. Aren't we supposed to maintain a kind of professional neutrality? Isn't there an ethics concern with leading with a personal story? So the answer, let me address it directly. There is no ethics rule anywhere that I can find, not in any model standards, not in any state's rules, not in any provider organization's code, that says you cannot tell a prospective client why you chose your specialty. What the rules say is that you cannot mislead, you cannot guarantee outcomes, and you cannot trade on confidential information from your cases. None of those rules are violated by a paragraph that says in plain language why you do this work. So what neutrality means is that you treat the parties in front of you fairly. It does not mean that you have no professional identity, no perspective, and no reason for being in the chair. Your clients know you're a human being. Pretending otherwise on your website doesn't make you more ethical. It makes you harder to choose. All right, so to get practical, how do you actually write this? First, I would set a timer for 20 minutes, open a blank document, and answer 4 questions in really plain language in the order that I'm about to give them. You don't want to edit as you go, just answer. The first question is, what is the work you do? In 1 sentence, no jargon. Pretend you're just telling your next door neighbor. Question 2, how did you end up doing this specific kind of work? Not the long version, the honest version. What was the moment, the experience, the previous career, the personal story that led you here? Question 3, what do you understand about this kind of dispute that someone without your particular background wouldn't? This is sort of the heart of the whole exercise. This is where your real differentiation lives. Question 4, what kind of client do you most want to help? And what would success look like for them after working with you? That's it, 4 questions, 20 minutes. But what comes out of that exercise is the raw material for your niche story. Of course, you'll edit it, you'll tighten it, you'll cut anything that feels overdone, but you will end up with something specific, something true, and something that no other practitioner in your market can copy, because no other practitioner has lived your specific path into this work. Now, a couple of warnings before I wrap up today's video, because I see these mistakes a lot. First, don't over dramatize. If your path to mediation was straightforward, say so. I came to mediation because as a litigator, I watched too many cases that should have settled, spent 3 years in discovery first. That's a perfectly good niche story. You don't need a personal tragedy to justify your work. Second, don't make it about you. Yeah, the story is about you, But the point of the story is the client. Every sentence should bring the reader closer to understanding what you bring to their situation. If a sentence is just about you, you can probably take it out. Lastly, don't outsource this one to AI. You can use AI for lots of things. I'll talk about that in other Marketing Mondays. But the first draft of your niche story should come from you in your own words in 20 quiet minutes. You can run it through an editor afterward, but the source has to be authentic. It has to be in your own voice. So here's your homework for this week. Pick your 20 minutes, put it on the calendar, block it out just like you would any client appointment, and answer those 4 questions. And then read what comes out and ask yourself, is this truer, more specific, and more compelling than what's currently on your About page? And if the answer is yes, which it almost always will be, you've got your next website edit. And if you want help thinking this through, or you'd like a second set of eyes on your niche story before you publish it, that's exactly what we do at Marketing Resolution. So come find me on my website, howtomarketmymediationpractice.com, or drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear what you come up with. I would love to hear your story of why. That's it for today. Be a good human. Bye-bye.